It started with the pants. Not the clingy yoga leggings she usually wore around the house. Those faded cotton things that had more to do with comfort than allure. These were different. Shiny. Slick. Designed to catch light and eyes. I remember the first time she walked out of the bedroom wearing them. I was halfway through my cereal, and I nearly dropped the spoon. New outfit? I asked, feigning casual curiosity. She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Just something for the new spin class I'm trying. That was the first I heard of it. The gym. The class. The beginning of the unraveling. At first, it seemed harmless. Healthy, even. Sarah, my wife of 7 years, had always dabbled in fitness, but never with this kind of obsession. Suddenly, she was waking up at 5 a.m. without an alarm, flying out the door in those new, painted-on spin pants, and that razorback tank that barely covered her chest. Her skin began to glow from the sweat, her body trimming in all the right places. She started taking extra time on her hair, even before a 6 a.m. class. Makeup, lip gloss. For a workout. I told myself she just wanted to feel good about herself. And hell, I wasn't complaining. There was something magnetic about the way she carried herself after a session, radiant, energized. She'd come home flushed, breathless, sometimes stretching in the living room with those long, lithe legs drawing my eyes despite myself. But then came the giggling. It started over dinner, when her phone buzzed and she snuck a glance. A text, followed by a bite of her lower lip and a poorly stifled laugh. When I asked who it was, she always answered too fast. Just Lacey. From class. Lacey must have had a hell of a sense of humor, because these texts had her grinning like a schoolgirl. The sex changed, too. It got hotter in a way. Not that I was complaining, at first. She was more aggressive, more adventurous, like she'd been taking lessons. There were nights where she rode me with a kind of fierce, urgent need that hadn't existed in years, and I welcomed it, thinking maybe this spin class was doing more than just toning her thighs. But there was something behind her eyes, something detached. She wasn't with me, not really. Not all of her. One Saturday, I tried to be romantic. Brought her breakfast in bed after her class. She barely looked at the tray. "You didn't have to do this," she said, voice flat, scrolling her phone. I watched her from the doorway as she typed out a message, then turned the screen away when she caught me looking. My gut twisted. I asked if she wanted to go out that night. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I'm exhausted. Spin double today. Maybe tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. The next week, she started coming home later. Post-spin stretching, she claimed. Or Lacey and I grabbed smoothies. Her cheeks were always red, hair slightly messy. Too messy for a simple cool down. She'd smile at me, kiss me on the cheek, and disappear upstairs for a shower. That's when I started noticing the smell. It wasn't hers. Not entirely. Beneath the fruity perfume and sweat, there was something masculine. A cologne I didn't wear. Faint, but unmistakable. Once, I found a small purple towel in the bottom of her gym bag. It had a name tag stitched into the corner, Derek. She said it must have been from the locker room, a mix-up. I didn't push. Not then. Instead, I waited and watched. The irony of it all was that the more I suspected, the more I wanted her. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was the way her body had become this toned, taut instrument of seduction. The way she'd arch her back, just right, the breathless sounds she made, the flash of wildness in her eyes when we fucked. It was intoxicating, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. One night, as she slept beside me, I turned her phone screen toward me when it buzzed. "Great ride today, S. Can't wait for round 2D. D. Derek." My heart clenched. I didn't sleep that night. That was when I knew. Something had changed. Something was already happening, and I wasn't about to let it unfold without knowing everything. The next step was clear. I needed to see it with my own eyes. It was the following Thursday when I finally did it. I left work early under the guise of a dentist appointment and drove straight to Pulse Studio, Sarah's beloved spin sanctuary. It was nestled between a smoothie bar and a boutique dog groomer, one of those sleek, glass-fronted places that screamed exclusive. The kind where instructors had Instagram followings and class slots were booked days in advance. I parked across the street and waited. The lobby buzzed with movement. Women in expensive activewear, a few men too, all wearing that tight, post-workout glow. Through the wide glass panes, I could see the juice bar in the back, minimalist chairs and high tables, mood lighting. Like a spa crossed with a nightclub. I almost didn't spot her at first. She was facing away from the entrance, seated at a high-top table, laughing. With him. I knew instantly it was Derek. I'd seen him in photos on the gym's Instagram page, shirtless, tattooed, cocky smile. In person, he was even more infuriating. Tan skin, arms covered in ink, hair swept back just enough to look effortless. The kind of guy women didn't just look at, they fantasized about. And there was Sarah, leaning in close, her hand resting on his shoulder. It wasn't a casual touch. It lingered. Her eyes crinkled as she laughed, genuine, unguarded. I hadn't seen her laugh like that with me in. I couldn't remember. Then he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. My stomach dropped. I watched as he whispered something in her ear, and she swatted at him playfully. Her hand grazed his chest, just briefly, but the way he smiled after said everything. It was intimate. Familiar. Something broke inside me in that moment. Not with a bang. Not with a scream or a sob. Just a silent snap. Like a hairline fracture becoming a full break. I didn't storm in. I didn't call her out. Instead, I waited. Watched. 10 minutes later, they both stood, grabbing their matching gym bags. He brushed his fingers along the small of her back as they walked toward the back exit. She didn't flinch. Didn't stop him. In fact, she leaned into it. I sat there, motionless, until their figures disappeared from view. Driving home, I replayed it all in my head. Her excuses. The new lingerie. The sudden interest in working out. The breathless moans that no longer sounded like mine. It was all there. The signs. And now, the confirmation. But still, I wasn't ready to confront her. That night, she came home a little after 7. Hair damp, skin flushed. I asked how the class was. She smiled. Killer workout. I'm gonna feel it tomorrow. Then she kissed me. Soft, familiar. It made me sick. We made love that night. Or maybe she just let me have her. I couldn't tell anymore. Her body felt like home, but there was something foreign in her touch, something distant. She came harder than usual, biting her lip, digging her nails into my back. Was she thinking about him? I lay awake long after she drifted off, her breathing soft beside me. I stared at the ceiling, the image of Derek's hand on her back seared into my mind. It was then I knew I needed more than confirmation. I needed a plan. So the next morning, I drove back to Pulse. I signed up for a membership. When the receptionist asked what my fitness goals were, I smiled and said, just looking to shake things up. She handed me a welcome packet and pointed toward the men's locker room. I didn't tell Sarah. Not yet. I wanted to be inside the walls of her little secret. I wanted to see what she saw, to feel what she felt, to learn the rhythm of her betrayal. And as I stood in the center of that polished, pulsing gym, watching the trainers flex and the members sweat beneath amber lighting, I realized. I wasn't just going to find out the truth. I was going to burn it down from the inside. Pulse Gym had an energy to it. Not just from the blaring EDM or the rows of bodies pushing through high-intensity circuits, but something deeper, something primal. It pulsed through the air like pheromones. Sex and sweat. Temptation dressed in neon leggings and sweat-slicked torsos. I kept my head down at first, playing the role of the awkward newbie. I avoided eye contact, made self-deprecating jokes when someone noticed I was still figuring out the elliptical. But my eyes were everywhere, especially on Derek. It didn't take long to find him. He was the gym's main attraction. Shirt always clinging, tattoos peeking from under his sleeves, voice just loud enough to draw eyes. He was running a group hit session near the back, barking encouragement at a group of women doing mountain climbers. Sarah wasn't there that morning, but I could picture her among them, laughing, sweating, submitting. Derek didn't notice me. Why would he? I wasn't competition. Not yet. I spent my first few sessions wandering through routines, learning the layout. By the end of week 2, I knew his schedule by heart: spin class on Mondays and Thursdays, boot camp Tuesdays, personal training Wednesday and Friday mornings. His clients were mostly women, younger and older, all with that same starry-eyed smile when they looked at him. That's when I saw her. Amber. She wasn't in gym gear that first time. She was leaning against the juice bar in a fitted gray coat, phone in hand, waiting. Even from across the gym, she stood out. Sleek. Composed. Eyes sharp behind designer frames. A beauty that didn't demand attention, it simply commanded it. I watched as Derek came out from the back, drenched in sweat, his shirt plastered to him like a second skin. He leaned in and kissed her. Quick, perfunctory. She barely looked up from her phone. His wife. They didn't speak much. He muttered something about running late and disappeared back down the hallway. She sipped her smoothie, sighed, and returned to scrolling her phone. That's when our eyes met. Just for a moment. She noticed me noticing her and raised an eyebrow, curious, not offended. Then she turned back to her screen like it didn't matter. But it did. That tiny moment stuck with me. Over the next few days, I made sure to be there when she was. I watched her sip matcha lattes and leave half-finished protein shakes. I learned her schedule, her order, how she crossed one ankle over the other when she sat. She didn't interact much with anyone, not even Derek. Especially not Derek. The disconnect between them was palpable. He lived in the spotlight. She orbited in silence. One day, I took a risk. She was standing at the counter, waiting for her drink. I stepped up beside her and nodded toward the green concoction in her hand. Is that as awful as it looks? I asked. She smiled, barely. I still on the blender. Worse. Then why torture yourself? She turned to look at me. Really look. Because it's what he recommends, she said, her tone flat. He being Derek? She tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing, measuring. You know him. I've seen the posters. Hard to miss the local celebrity. That earned a small chuckle. Yeah, hard to miss. I introduced myself. She gave me her name, Amber. Short, crisp. No last name offered. But it was enough. Over the next week, we began bumping into each other more. Casual conversations at the bar. Shared jokes about the ridiculous menu options. Observations about the gym's parade of flexing egos. And slowly, the wall began to crack. One afternoon, after my session, I spotted her alone in the lounge. I walked past, casually, and she surprised me. Let me guess, she said, you're another poor soul looking to transform your life? I smirked. Something like that. Careful, she said, sipping her smoothie. This place transforms a lot more than just your body. I met her gaze. What's that supposed to mean? She held my eyes for a beat longer than necessary, then looked away. I didn't push. I just smiled and said, well, I'm starting with arms and abs. Emotional transformation can wait. She laughed. A real one this time. It felt like a crack of light in a pitch-black tunnel. I walked out of that gym that day not just feeling stronger, but strategic. Sarah was still cheating. Derek was still a smug bastard. But now, I had Amber, and I was going to use that opening, not just to get even, but to change the rules of the game entirely. By the third week, the gym felt like a second skin. The smell of sweat and citrus-scented disinfectant, the hum of treadmills and pulsing bass lines, it all became strangely comforting. My body, once soft from years of desk work and suburban routine, had begun to change. Muscles returning, joints loosening. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't entirely hate what I saw. But what really changed was my focus. I'd stopped thinking about the betrayal constantly. Not because it hurt any less, but because I had a mission now. And that mission came wrapped in form-fitting yoga pants and a tight black tank that read strong as sexy. Amber. She was an enigma wrapped in calm detachment. She showed up at the gym with regularity, ordered the same kale mango spinach smoothie, always sat at the same table by the window. Most days, Derek barely acknowledged her. Some mornings he didn't even kiss her goodbye. The loneliness in her eyes mirrored mine. So I leaned in. We started talking more. At first, it was harmless. Banter about bad protein powders, gossip about ridiculous gym-goers. But then, the conversations deepened. Amber was whip-smart, sharp-tongued, and disillusioned. She wasn't unaware of Derek's fan club. In fact, she noticed everything. You see that one? She said one day, nodding at a leggy brunette stretching in front of the mirror. She accidentally booked a private session with Derek 3 times this month. Same time slot every week. She's subtle, I replied, watching the woman not so subtly arch her back mid-stretch. She's 26, and I know for a fact she wears makeup to class. Amber sipped her drink, eyes gleaming. Do you know what it's like watching your husband flirt with women who giggle every time he corrects their squat form? I hesitated. Actually, I might have an idea. She turned to me slowly. Your wife. I nodded, the bitterness rising in my throat like bile. Same class. Same guy. Her eyes widened. No. Way. She sat back in her chair, studying me like she was seeing me for the first time. And here I thought I was just your juice bar distraction. I smiled. You were. And then you became the highlight of my day. That earned me a smile, one that lingered longer than it should have. We started syncing our schedules. Morning workouts, post-spin smoothies, casual chats that turned into deeper exchanges. I found myself craving those moments. Not just for the revenge plot brewing in the back of my mind, but for her. There was a pull between us. Electric. Unspoken. During one particularly humid afternoon, we ended up in the weight section at the same time. I was midway through a set of dumbbell presses when she walked over, towel draped over one shoulder. Need a spot? Her tone was playful, but there was something in her eyes, an invitation. Sure, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. She stood behind me as I lifted. Her fingers brushed my triceps under the guise of adjusting my form. I inhaled sharply. She noticed. That tense, huh? It's been a week. She leaned closer. I could feel her breath against my ear. Maybe you just need someone who knows how to handle tension. I dropped the weights with a heavy thud and looked up at her. For a moment, neither of us said a word. Her lips curled in a knowing smirk. Drink after this? Absolutely. That night, over protein smoothies that neither of us touched, she told me about her marriage. Derek wasn't abusive, just absent, arrogant. He thought his body and his fan base were enough. He hadn't touched her in weeks, months even. She said it like a confession, but there was no shame in her voice. Just exhaustion. You ever miss? Just feeling wanted? She asked. I nodded. Every damn day. And in that moment, the line between flirtation and something more serious blurred. We didn't kiss that night, but we lingered at the curb outside her car. Her hand brushed mine. Our eyes locked. Nothing happened, but everything changed. There are moments you can't unsee. Mine happened in the back of the yoga room, dimly lit, tucked behind the main studio, usually reserved for stretching or one-on-one sessions. I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd finished my workout early and wandered the halls, letting instinct and something darker guide my feet. The door was ajar. From just outside, I heard hushed voices, Sarah's unmistakable giggle, low and breathy, followed by Derek's smooth baritone. I moved quietly, hugging the wall. My breath caught in my throat as I peered through the crack. There she was, Sarah, my wife, bent over in a low stretch position, laughing as Derek hovered behind her, hands on her hips, guiding her movements too slow, too familiar. His fingers slid under the hem of her shirt, brushing skin. She didn't flinch. She leaned back into his touch. Then came the whisper. I miss this, Derek murmured. She turned her head just enough, her lips brushing his jawline. I know. Me too. And then he kissed her. Not a hungry, rushed kiss, but slow, intimate. The kind of kiss people give when they think no one's watching. The kind that doesn't just say, I want you. It says, I've had you. I'll have you again. I didn't move. Didn't burst in. Didn't shout. Didn't fall apart. I just watched. Something inside me detached. Not numbness. Not yet. More like clarity. Cold. Razor sharp. I turned and walked away. The ride home was quiet. I don't remember the streets or the traffic. I remember my hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. I remember the rhythm of Sarah's laugh in my head, over and over again, like a song I couldn't turn off. When I got home, I went to the kitchen, poured a drink, then another. I stared at the bottle, wondering how many it would take to forget the curve of her body pressed against his. But I didn't drink them. Instead, I opened my laptop. Amber. If anyone would understand, it was her. I didn't have to fake the emotion in my message. I just wrote, it's confirmed. I saw them. Yoga room. It's real. She replied less than 10 minutes later. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I stared at the screen for a while before typing. No, but I will be. She sent back a single line. Let's meet tomorrow. We need to talk. The next day, we sat together in her car, parked in a quiet corner of the gym's lot. No workout gear. No gym bags. Just two people whose lives had been fractured by the same man. Amber looked at me, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. I know how this feels, but you're not alone. I didn't expect it to hurt this much, I said, voice thick. She touched my hand. It's supposed to hurt. That's what makes us human. Silence hung between us for a while. Then she said, we could confront them. Together. I shook my head. No, not yet. Let them feel safe. Let them think they've gotten away with it. Amber raised an eyebrow. And then what? I turned to her fully. Then we hit them where it hurts. For a second, I thought she'd flinch. But instead, she smiled. Slow. Wicked. I was hoping you'd say that. She leaned in, her face inches from mine. I could smell her perfume, subtle, seductive. Her breath was warm against my cheek. Just so we're clear, she whispered, I'm not doing this just for revenge. I met her eyes. Neither am I. The line between strategy and chemistry vanished. We didn't kiss, but the promise of one hung in the air like static electricity. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt ready. The gym became our battlefield. But this time, it wasn't just about watching or waiting. I threw myself into the routine like a man possessed. Early mornings, evening lifts, cardio until my lungs burned. I wasn't just getting in shape, I was sharpening a weapon. And Amber? She became the spark that kept me going. We never spoke of the plan directly. Not yet. But every look, every smirk across the weight floor, every time she brushed past me in those skin-tight leggings, there was tension, coiled and electric. We trained together often now, casual to anyone else, but underneath, we were syncing up, timing our moves, reading each other's rhythms. It started innocently enough. A Saturday morning, upper body day. Amber spotted me from across the gym and walked over, ponytail swinging, her sports bra hugging her just right, supportive but still showing off those toned curves that made heads turn, mine included. Need a partner? She asked, holding up a resistance band. I grinned. Thought you'd never ask. We moved through a circuit, band pulls, push-ups, core work. Somewhere between round 3 and 4, the sweat began to bead down her neck, trailing between the valley of her chest. I caught myself staring too long and she noticed. She didn't stop me. In fact, she stepped closer. Focus, she teased, breathless. I muttered, eyes locked on hers. Just not on the workout. She flushed, but didn't look away. The space between us throbbed with unspoken heat. Then came the assisted pull-ups. Amber positioned herself behind me as I gripped the bar. I'll help with the band tension, she said, looping it under my foot. Just don't fall. I'm not strong enough to catch your big ass. I laughed. I'm trusting you with my life here. As I pulled, I felt her hand press lightly against my lower back, guiding me, steadying me. Each rep was a slow burn, not just in my arms, but in the way her hand lingered after every rise and fall. We switched places. Watching her from below, muscles taut, sweat glistening on her stomach. God, she was beautiful. Not just sexy, but radiant. Like she'd been hiding in shadow, and now the light finally caught her right. You're staring, she said, breathless. I know. And I didn't stop. Later, in the studio's private corner, where people stretched or did light yoga, she sat beside me, legs extended in a butterfly stretch. Her knee brushed mine. I didn't move. She glanced over. You ever think we're going too far? Define too far. This. Us. I looked at her, feeling the warmth of her thigh against mine. We're both married to people who stopped seeing us a long time ago. Amber sighed. He used to ask how my day was. Now, he only notices me when my leggings ride up during a deadlift. I chuckle bitterly. Sarah still pretends to be exhausted after spin class. Except it's not the bike that's wearing her out. Amber turned toward me, voice lower. When's the last time someone really touched you? Not just sex. I mean, wanted you. I didn't answer. She didn't need me to. We sat there for a while, quiet, the tension between us mounting like pressure behind a dam. Then she reached forward, as if adjusting her shoe, and her hand brushed along my thigh. Slow, deliberate, not accidental. I looked down at her. Her eyes were defiant, curious. Just so we're clear, she murmured, you're not the only one with a plan. My voice was low. What's your plan? She stood, stretched, and glanced over her shoulder. You'll find out soon enough. Then she walked away, hips swaying, leaving me breathless. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because of the betrayal. Not even the anger. It was Amber. And the promise we hadn't spoken, but both knew was coming. The night she came over was like a match being lit in a room soaked with gasoline. I hadn't expected it. There was no pretense. No warning. It was just past 9 p.m. I was in gym shorts, a half-empty beer in my hand, scrolling through a mindless stream of TV when I heard the knock. 3 soft taps. Deliberate. When I opened the door, Amber stood there, hair damp from a shower, wearing a loose zip-up hoodie and those black leggings I'd seen a dozen times. But now, they looked different. Intentional. She didn't wait for an invitation. Just stepped inside. I needed to get out of the house, she said, brushing past me. He's gone for the night. Late training session. I closed the door slowly, my heart hammering like I just sprinted. You okay? She turned, locking eyes with me. No, but I will be. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just walked to the center of my living room, stood there, and began unzipping her hoodie. Slowly. Underneath, she wore nothing but a black sports bra, tight, sculpted fabric that hugged her in all the right places. Her stomach was taut, glistening faintly with leftover lotion. Her eyes burned into mine, challenging me. I've been thinking about this, she said softly. About you. I crossed the room in 2 strides. The first kiss wasn't tentative. It wasn't careful or restrained. It was hunger, fury, need, all crashing together in a spark of mouths and teeth and breath. I pressed her against the wall, my hands at her waist, then sliding up her sides, fingers memorizing the shape of her. She moaned into my mouth, tugging at my shirt, ripping it over my head in one motion. Her fingers dug into my back as my lips moved down her neck, tasting salt and skin and sweat. We didn't speak. Words would have ruined it. The bedroom was an afterthought. We stumbled into it, shedding clothes like skins. Her leggings peeled away, revealing smooth, bare thighs that wrapped around me as we hit the mattress. And then finally, we connected. It wasn't just sex. It was reclamation. For every look Derek gave her like she was just another trophy. For every text Sarah had hidden. For every time we both felt invisible. Amber moved with fire, her nails clawing, her hips grinding against mine like she'd been waiting years. She was fierce, unrelenting, and when we came together, it wasn't silent. It was raw and loud and real. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets and breath. She traced the line of my jaw with one finger. You feel it too, right? I nodded. Yeah, this isn't just revenge anymore. No. She propped herself up on one elbow. He never looks at me the way you just did. I don't think she's even looked at me in months. Amber leaned down, kissed my chest, then rested her head there. We're not broken, she whispered. They are. We stayed like that for hours. No pretending. No masks. In the quiet, I felt something settle inside me, not peace, not yet, but a certainty. This wasn't just about getting even anymore. It was about rediscovering who I was through her. With Amber, I felt powerful, seen, desired. Tomorrow, we'd plan the final act. But tonight, I was no longer the victim. It began with a spreadsheet. Amber was meticulous, sharper than I ever gave her credit for. She showed up the next morning, hair tied, no makeup, hoodie zipped to her chin, and a glint in her I hadn't seen before. She carried coffee and her laptop. No preamble, no small talk, just strategy. Derek's schedule, she said, tapping the screen. Classes, training blocks, breaks. I even tracked his favorite protein bar deliveries. That man is predictable down to the minute. I stared, impressed. This is terrifying. She smiled. I'm a lawyer's daughter. Organization is my love language. We sat together on my couch, close enough to touch, though our focus stayed locked on the mission. Sarah's habits were easier to predict. She always attended Derek's Monday night spin, Thursday night hit, and the Friday stretch and sculpt, her favorite, and his lightest day. It didn't take long for the plan to form. Friday, Amber said, eyes gleaming. End of week. Packed studio. And it's Derek's biggest class. No one leaves early. No one skips that one. I nodded slowly. That's when we do it. We refined the timing to the second. Sarah would be on her mat, waiting. Derek would be up front, charming everyone, flashing that insufferable smirk. And Amber and I, two people supposedly broken, would walk in like fire wrapped in gasoline. I want everyone watching, Amber said. I want them to see who he really is. They won't forget, I promised. The next few days crawled. At the gym, we kept our distance. We played our parts. I kept lifting, training, acting casual. Sarah didn't even notice the difference, too wrapped up in her own world, her carefully crafted deception. Derek still smiled at everyone like he owned the place. He hadn't even looked twice at me. That wouldn't last much longer. Thursday night, Amber stayed over again. This time, it wasn't about urgency or anger. It was slower, sweeter. She laid her head on my chest afterward and whispered, you know, even after this is over, I don't want to lose this. I kissed her forehead. Neither do I. Friday arrived like a loaded gun. I woke early, worked out hard, showered and dressed not in my usual gym wear, but something better, fitted black tee, jeans, boots polished, clean cut, confident, like a man in control of the story again. Amber met me outside the gym. She wore a deep red dress, not gym appropriate, not subtle. It clung to her in all the right places. Her lipstick matched the fire in her eyes. You ready? She asked. I took her hand. Let's burn it down. Inside, the class was already buzzing. Music thumped from behind the door. The front desk attendant looked up but didn't stop us. Why would she? We belonged there more than anyone in that room. We paused outside the main spin studio. I could see them through the glass. Derek in front, laughing, towel slung over his shoulder, his shirt off. Because of course it was. Sarah sat on her bike near the front row, hair tied high, those same damned leggings she wore when she first started this descent. Her phone rested on the floor by her mat. Probably one more text exchange before the warm-up. I turned to Amber. You sure you want to do this? She stepped closer, took my face in both hands. I want him to feel 1 ounce of the betrayal I've been drowning in. Let's give him the whole ocean. I pushed the door open. Eyes turned. The music dipped, just for a second. Derek looked up and froze. Sarah twisted in her seat, her smile faltering when she saw me. Then her face paled completely when she saw Amber. I didn't stop. Amber and I walked straight through the room, through a sea of sweating, breathless people. Derek's charm cracked. He shifted his weight like he didn't know whether to step forward or hide. Amber turned to me, then spun on her heel. I took her by the waist, pulled her close, and kissed her. Not a peck, not a performative smooch, but a deep, slow, soul-splitting kiss. The kind of kiss that melts rooms. The kind people talk about for weeks. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Derek stood frozen. Sarah's mouth dropped open, eyes wide. Phones lifted, flashes, clicks, whispers spreading like wildfire. I broke the kiss, leaned into Amber's ear, and whispered loud enough for those close to hear. Now they know. Amber smiled, eyes dancing. We walked out, hand in hand. No need to look back. Let them sit in the fallout. I didn't expect the aftermath to taste so sweet. We were barely out the door when Amber's phone began lighting up, notifications from Instagram, Snapchat, gym gossip group chats. Someone had already posted a picture of the kiss, captioned, "Did anyone else just see what the hell happened in Derek's class?" The comments flooded in. Some shocked, some cheering, some most mocking Derek. We didn't say much during the ride back to my place. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy with satisfaction, the shared high of executing something perfectly. But the real fire came later. Because that kiss, public, passionate, calculated, set the entire gym on fire. Derek's spin class? Half of them left early. Rumors spread fast. That he was cheating on Amber. That Sarah had no clue. That the guy who kissed Amber, me, was the cheating wife's husband. By noon, Derek had turned off his Instagram comments. By 3 p.m., the gym sent a memo reminding members that conduct outside of physical training may still reflect upon the professional integrity of our staff. By 6 p.m., Sarah was blowing up my phone. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the gym one more time, just before closing. Not to work out, but to make something crystal clear. I wasn't hiding anymore. Amber had gone home to pack some of her things. She said she might stay with her sister for a bit, to create some space before the legal dust began to rise. I entered the gym through the front this time, no hood up, no sneaking glances. The place was mostly empty, but a few people were still around. Familiar faces. People who had definitely seen the video. I walked toward the weight section. There, as if the universe demanded it, was Derek, spotting someone on squats. His shirt clung to his chest, his jaw clenched tighter than I'd ever seen. When he noticed me, his face twisted panic, anger, confusion. I kept walking, right up to the squat rack beside him. I loaded on plates, slow and steady. Let the weight clang, let him hear the strength I'd earned since this started. The girl he was spotting turned and quickly excused herself. Derek stood alone now. I didn't look at him at first. Just gripped the bar, lifted, and let it settle on my shoulders with a grunt. The weight pressed down, but it was nothing compared to the pressure I'd lived under for weeks. After my first set, I dropped the bar back into place and finally turned to him. "Nice form," I said casually. He didn't reply. Instead, he stared, like he was waiting for a punch. But I wasn't giving him that. "Sarah know you're still working tonight?" I asked, reaching for my water. He shifted. "Look, man." I held up a hand. "Don't. You don't get to talk yet." Derek looked around. A couple of gym staff had paused mid-fold or cleanup. The tension bled into the air. "You've been sleeping with my wife," I continued, calm and controlled. "I watched you touch her. I saw how you looked at her. But I wasn't surprised." His brow furrowed. "Then why?" "Because you're predictable," I interrupted. "You were never going to be loyal. Not to her. Not to Amber. Not to anyone." His lips tightened. "Amber and I haven't." "Don't lie," I snapped, stepping in close. "You already lost her. You just haven't realized it yet." He looked away. Couldn't meet my eyes. I leaned in closer, voice low. "And in case you're wondering, she's not crying about it." Then I turned to leave, but paused. I turned back. "Tell Sarah I won't be home tonight." That landed. His jaw dropped slightly. "She still doesn't know?" I asked, pretending to think. Interesting. Maybe she'll figure it out when she finds her key doesn't work anymore. I walked out of the gym. Just like that. No shouting. No fists. Just the truth, dragged into the light, where everyone could see it. Let the king of spin figure out how to rebuild his image. I was done hiding in the shadows of betrayal. In the end, it wasn't fire that burned it all down. It was silence. Sarah came home that night to find the locks changed and her clothes boxed neatly in the garage. No note. No confrontation. Just the quiet, measured consequences of her actions. She pounded on the door for nearly an hour. I didn't answer. She texted me, "Please talk to me." Then, it didn't mean anything. Then, "You're blowing this out of proportion." And finally, "You're just trying to hurt me." Who is she? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The gym knew. Her friends knew. Hell, Derek's downfall was now a full-blown rumor mill spectacle. He'd taken a leave of absence as of Monday. Pulse Studio's website scrubbed his profile. His once daily thirst traps went dark. As for Amber, she didn't gloat. She moved into her sister's guest house, took time off work, and started therapy. We still met quietly. Often. She'd come over and we'd sit on the porch, drinking wine and watching dusk settle like a secret we didn't need to share with the world. What we had now wasn't just passion. It was peace. One night, a week after the explosion, I asked her, "What do you want from this?" She looked at me with those clear, stormy eyes. Not revenge anymore. Not drama. Just honesty. And space to heal. And maybe something more? I asked. She smiled. "If it's with you, maybe." We never used words like love. Not yet. But it didn't feel far off. Sarah's final message came on a Thursday. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how far gone I was until I saw you kiss her. I never thought you'd move on before I could explain." She didn't understand. There was no explanation left. Some betrayals aren't meant to be understood. They're meant to be endured and left behind. I deleted her text and blocked her number. Closure doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with silence. I quit Pulse Gym the next day. Left behind the weights, the mirrors, the ghosts of what had happened there. I'd built my body in that space. I'd buried my pain under steel and sweat. But now, I didn't need it anymore. Amber and I started meeting at a new place, a low-key studio that didn't have neon lights or Instagram models. Just real people, showing up. Like us. We'd work out, spot each other, laugh between reps. And sometimes, after a good session, I'd pull her close, press a kiss to her temple, and remind her what it felt like to be wanted. The past didn't disappear, but it didn't define us anymore. I'd lost a marriage, yes, but I found something else. Strength, truth, and a woman who didn't just see me, but stood with me, hand in hand, when the fire died down and only the embers remained. This wasn't revenge. This was rebirth. And I walked away from the ashes stronger than ever.